Chapter 1. The Rejection. The night of the full moon was meant to be a celebration. The pack had gathered in the great hall, torches blazing against the stone walls, anticipation hanging thick in the air. For Leona, it was supposed to be the most important night of her life. Whispers had followed her for weeks, that fate had chosen her, that the mate bond would reveal itself before the eyes of the pack. Her heart raced with both excitement and dread. After all, she was not the daughter of a respected Beta or Gamma. She was the daughter of a disgraced warrior, a man whose honor had died with him on the battlefield. Still, hope fluttered inside her. Maybe fate would prove everyone wrong. The air shifted when Alpha Darius entered. His presence dominated the hall, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes like a brewing storm that silenced the murmurs instantly. The weight of his authority pressed on every wolf present. Leona's breath caught when his gaze locked onto hers, and the bond snapped into place. A surge of warmth and recognition flooded her veins, her wolf howling with joy. She saw the truth flash in his eyes, too. He felt it, undeniable, the mate bond tying them together. But instead of acceptance, his jaw tightened. His fists clenched at his sides. Silence stretched unbearably, broken only by the pounding of Leona's heart. Then his voice cut through the hall, cold and final. "You are not the mate I wished for, Leona. I reject you." Gasps rippled through the pack. Some wolves turned away in pity, others in cruel satisfaction. The rejection burned worse than fire, tearing at her chest, making her wolf whimper in pain. But Leona refused to fall apart before them. She forced her shoulders back, her chin high, refusing to give Darius or the pack the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. Their golden brown eyes met his storm gray ones, steady and unflinching. "Then hear me, Alpha," she said softly, her voice steady despite the storm raging within. "You may reject me tonight, but one day you will realize that I am the mate you need." The words echoed through the silent hall. For a heartbeat, something flickered in Darius's expression, doubt, regret, something unspoken, but his pride buried it instantly. He turned away, signaling the end of the gathering. Humiliated, her heart shattered, Leona walked out of the hall. Behind her, the whispers began again, yet with every step she felt her pride hardening into armor. She would not be defined by his rejection. Fate had chosen her for a reason, and even if her Alpha could not see it, one day the truth would burn too bright to ignore. Chapter 2. Shattered but unbroken, the forest was quiet, but Leona's heart was anything but. Every step she took away from the pack's great hall felt like dragging chains behind her. Her wolf whimpered inside, wounded and restless, the sting of rejection burning so deep she thought it might consume her whole. It was not just her heart that ached, it was her very soul. Torn apart by the bond that fate had woven and Alpha Darius had so cruelly severed in front of everyone. She had never felt so raw, so exposed, so humiliated. The path beneath her feet was familiar, yet that night it seemed endless. The wind carried faint echoes of the pack's celebrations that she should have been a part of. Instead of joy, she carried the weight of whispers and ridicule. She could almost hear them even now. The Alpha rejected her. She wasn't worthy. The daughter of a disgraced warrior could never be Luna. Each imagined word dug into her skin like thorns, but she clenched her fists and pressed forward. She refused to let them see her break. Leona did not return to the crowded pack quarters. She couldn't. The thought of walking through those doors and facing dozens of eyes, some pitying, others gleeful at her humiliation, was unbearable. No, she needed distance, space to breathe. And so, guided by instinct more than thought, she veered off the familiar trail and headed deeper into the woods where the moonlight bled silver across the forest floor. The scent of pine, moss, and damp earth wrapped around her, soothing her frayed nerves. The sound of the nearby stream trickled like a lullaby. It was here, among the shadows of ancient trees, that she felt a flicker of safety. Her destination appeared at last, the old cabin. The cabin had belonged to her father, once a warrior spoken of with reverence until betrayal and tragedy had left his name stained. After his death, no one cared to claim the place. To the pack, it was nothing but a ruin, an abandoned relic of shame. But to Leona, it had always been more. As a child, she had stolen away here, hiding from the cruel whispers of others. It had been her safe haven then, and tonight it will be again. She pushed the door open. The wood groaned, long unused, and the hinges protested. Inside, the air smelled of dust and time. Moonlight streamed in through the cracks in the shutters, casting long silver beams across the empty floor. Spiderwebs clung to the corners and the hearth sat cold and lifeless. Yet despite the neglect, the cabin welcomed her with silence and solitude. Leona's knees finally gave way. She sank onto the floor, her body trembling as the storm inside her broke free. Hot tears rolled down her cheeks, each one carrying a fragment of pain too heavy to hold in. She pressed her palms to the wooden boards and let the sobs come, her wolf keening in the back of her mind. The pain of rejection was unlike anything she had ever felt, a wound that no physical blow could ever match. But even as the grief consumed her, something deep within stirred. Perhaps it was pride, or perhaps it was the stubborn streak she had inherited from her father. Slowly she straightened her spine, her breathing steadied. She wiped the tears with the back of her hand and lifted her chin. "I will not beg," she whispered, her voice unsteady at first but growing firmer. The walls of the cabin seemed to lean closer, listening. "I will not crawl back to him. If he cannot see my worth, then I will carve it into the world myself. One day, Alpha Darius will regret the moment his pride blinded him." Her gaze lifted to the hearth. Above it, covered in dust but still intact, rested her father's old sword. The leather grip was worn, the steel dulled, but it radiated strength. Reverently, she reached up and laid her hand on it. A shiver passed through her, a rush of connection, as if her father's spirit stood with her in that moment, lending her courage. The weapon was not just steel, it was a reminder of who she was, of the bloodline she carried. She drew the sword down and rested it across her lap. The weight steadied her, grounded her. Her wolf stirred, no longer whimpering but watching, waiting. For the first time since the rejection, Leona felt the faint flicker of something other than pain. Determination. The moonlight shifted, spilling brighter into the cabin. She tilted her face upward, her golden brown eyes gleaming as she whispered a vow. "I may be shattered tonight, but I am not broken. I will rise from this. And when I do, they will see me not as the discarded mate of an alpha, but as the Luna fate intended." Her words lingered in the stillness, a promise etched into the night. Outside, the forest seemed to echo with approval, the whisper of leaves, the rustle of branches, the call of a distant owl. Leona lay down that night on the old wooden floor, her father's sword by her side. Though her heart still bled, she closed her eyes with resolve hardening within her. The rejection would not end her story. It was only the beginning. Chapter 3, Whispers in the Dark. The next morning, the packland seemed different to Leona, though nothing had truly changed. The same watchtowers stood tall, the same hunting trails cut through the forest, and the same pack members moved through their daily routines. But for her, everything was tinted with the weight of rejection. The bond had not snapped, but it bled, leaving her restless, aching, and aware of every shift in Darius's presence. Word had spread quickly. Packs thrived on whispers, and now every glance held meaning. Some eyes were filled with pity, others with thinly veiled amusement. The cruelty of rejection was not only the sting from her alpha, but the echo of a pack's judgment. Leona kept her chin high, though her stomach twisted. She had spent the night at her father's cabin, breathing in his lingering scent, remembering his deep voice telling her she was meant for more than the opinions of others. But now she walked through the heart of the pack grounds, shoulders squared, daring anyone to laugh. Children chased each other near the training grounds. Warriors sparred under the sharp instructions of their captains. Darius stood at the far end of the field, his broad shoulders commanding authority as he gave orders. His golden eyes flicked toward her just once, cold and unreadable, before snapping back to his warriors. That single glance cut deeper than claws. "Leona," a soft voice called. She turned to see Mara, her childhood friend, hurrying toward her. Mara's eyes brimmed with worry. "You shouldn't be here. They're talking." "Let them," Leona replied firmly, though her throat was tight. "I won't hide like a coward." Mara reached for her hand but hesitated. Even friends struggled with the weight of an alpha's rejection. Still, Mara leaned closer. "There are whispers. Some say the moon goddess made a mistake. Others say Darius refused you because of your father." Leona's heart clenched, but she didn't flinch. "My father's honor may have been shattered, but his blood runs in me. If the pack cannot see that strength, then they are blinder than I thought." Mara's gaze softened. "Be careful. Pride can be dangerous here. Darius won't tolerate defiance." Leona's lips curved into the faintest, defiant smile. "Then let him learn that rejection does not mean silence." As the day wore on, she noticed something unusual. Strangers moved among the pack, emissaries from another territory cloaked in neutral colors, speaking in hushed tones with the elders. Leona's wolf bristled. Change was stirring. She could feel it in her bones, like a storm gathering on the horizon. That night, as she returned to her cabin, the forest no longer felt entirely safe. She sensed eyes watching her from the shadows, a growl rumbling low in the distance. The rejection had marked her, yes, but it had also drawn attention that might bring either her salvation or her destruction. Whispers in the dark were growing louder, and soon Leona would learn that her story was no longer hers alone. It was entwined with the fate of the entire pack. Chapter 4: The Gathering Storm. The pack's council chamber was alive with tension that evening. Long tables carved from oak encircled the fire pit in the center, where flames crackled and shadows leapt across the faces of the elders. The emissaries from the neighboring Silverfang pack sat among them, cloaked in dark grays and blues, their eyes sharp and calculating. Discussions of treaties and alliances had brought them here, but Leona could sense there was more hidden beneath their words. She stood at the edges of the chamber, silent and unacknowledged. A rejected mate was not expected to linger near matters of the pack's future, but her instincts had pulled her here, drawn by the undercurrent of unease. Her wolf stirred, ears pricked as if warning of something yet unseen. Alpha Darius presided at the head of the table, his voice strong and commanding. "Our borders have been threatened twice this moon. Rogues test our defenses, and whisperers claim they gather in numbers unseen for decades. We need stronger alliances." The Silverfang emissary, a woman with sharp cheekbones and eyes like cold steel, tilted her head. "And what will you offer in return for such loyalty, Alpha?" "Treaties demand more than promises." Leona watched as Darius's jaw tightened. Pride rolled off him like thunder, but she knew the truth. Alliances came at a cost, and pride alone could not pay it. Her presence did not go unnoticed. One of the younger warriors leaned toward another and muttered, too loudly, "Strange, isn't it? Even rejected, she clings to the pack like a shadow." A ripple of quiet laughter followed, but Leona did not flinch. Instead, she raised her chin and met their stares. If they expected her to break, they would be waiting a long time. Mara slipped in beside her, whispering urgently, "Leona, you shouldn't be here. If Darius sees—" But before she could finish, the Alpha's voice rang out, sharp as a blade. "Leona!" Every head turned. His golden eyes locked on hers, unreadable but filled with something heavy. "You will leave, now." The command struck like lightning through the bond, forcing her wolf to tremble under the weight of authority. Her body ached to obey, but she dug her nails into her palms and held her ground. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, softly but firmly, she answered, "No." Gasps filled the chamber. Even Mara's breath caught. Defying an Alpha was unthinkable. But Leona's wolf surged within her, not with rebellion but with a fierce certainty. Something about these emissaries, about the growing rogue threat, demanded her presence. Darius's gaze darkened, but he did not lash out. Instead, he studied her as though seeing her for the first time. Not as a rejected mate, but as a force he could not easily dismiss. The Silverfang emissary smiled faintly, her eyes glinting. "It seems your pack is not without spirit." Leona held her ground, heart racing but voice steady. "The rogues are not gathering by chance. Something moves them. You'll need more than alliances to stop what's coming." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Leona had spoken the fear none dared name. Darius's stare lingered on her, heavy with unspoken conflict. For the first time since her rejection, the pack looked at her not with pity or disdain, but with a flicker of respect. And beneath the rising storm of politics and danger, a new fire sparked in her chest. If fate had marked her as Luna, then perhaps her place was not to wait for acceptance, but to seize it, no matter the cost. Chapter 5. Chains of Defiance. The night air was sharp when Leona stepped out of the council chamber, her pulse still racing from the confrontation. The cool wind bit against her skin, but it was nothing compared to the fire burning inside her. She had defied her Alpha, her mate, before the elders and emissaries. The consequences could be dire, but for the first time she felt the stirrings of freedom in her chest. Mara hurried after her, her face pale with fear. "Leona, do you realize what you've done? No wolf challenges their Alpha so openly and walks away unscathed." Leona slowed her stride but did not stop. Her voice was steady. "I didn't challenge him. I spoke the truth. If he cannot hear it, that is his weakness, not mine." Mara grabbed her arm, desperation in her grip. "You're playing with fire. Darius's pride is a storm. If you push too hard, it will consume you." Leona looked at her friend, her golden brown eyes shimmering with conviction. "Then let it. I will not cower, Mara. Not anymore." The bond tugged painfully at her heart, as though Darius himself could feel her rebellion and disapproved from afar. Yet along with the ache came something else, a flicker of curiosity, a pulse of recognition. He had seen her strength, even if he would not admit it. As Leona walked deeper into the forest, her wolf stirred uneasily. Shadows shifted along the tree line. A branch cracked, too deliberate to be the wind. Her senses sharpened, catching the faint, acrid scent of rogues. She reached for her father's sword, the leather grip rough against her palm. "Show yourself," she commanded, her voice low but laced with authority. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, their eyes glowing feral yellow, their bodies lean and twisted by the life of rogues. The leader, scarred across the cheek, grinned cruelly. The rejected one, he sneered. Left alone, unprotected. How convenient. The rogues lunged. Steel met claws as she swung her father's sword, sparks flying under the moonlight. Her body moved with instinct, her wolf guiding her steps, dodging and striking. One rogue fell with a gash across his chest, but the others circled, relentless. Just as a claw grazed her shoulder, a powerful snarl split the night. In an instant, a massive black wolf leapt into the fray, eyes glowing with fury. Darius. He tore into the rogues with savage precision, his fangs ripping through their defenses. Within moments, the survivors fled into the trees, their howls echoing in retreat. The clearing fell silent but for the sound of Leona's ragged breaths. Darius shifted back, towering above her, his chest bare and blood spattered, his eyes burning with anger. And something else, something unspoken. "Do you have a death wish?" he growled, his voice deep and sharp. "Or are you truly so determined to test me?" Leona wiped the blood from her blade, refusing to cower. "I do not fear rogues, and I do not fear you." For a long moment they stared at each other, alpha and rejected mate, bound by fate and divided by pride. The night crackled with tension, and beneath it all the bond thrummed, alive and undeniable. Chapter 6. Silent Bonds. The forest was quiet again, but the silence carried weight. The stench of blood clung to the air, sharp and metallic, mixing with the earthy scent of pine. Leona's shoulder throbbed where the rogue's claw had torn her skin, yet she refused to show weakness. Not here, not in front of him. Darius stood just a few steps away, his golden eyes locked on her. The moonlight carved his sharp features into stone, every line of his face set with restrained fury. "You should have been nowhere near here," he said at last, his voice low but firm, each word like steel. "You could have been killed." Leona straightened, gripping her father's sword until her knuckles whitened. "And if I had waited in silence, hidden away as you and the pack expect of me, I'd be no better than a shadow. I will not be invisible, Darius." Her defiance was a blade between them, sharper than any sword. For a moment his jaw clenched, but then his gaze softened almost imperceptibly. Almost. "You're reckless," he muttered, and yet his words trailed off, swallowed by the night. He didn't finish, but she caught it. The hesitation, the crack in his armor of pride. Leona's wolf pushed against her, restless. The bond between them pulsed with heat, an ache that spread through her chest. She hated how alive it made her feel, even in the aftermath of rejection. She hated that part of her still longed for him, even as pride demanded distance. Darius stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, the air thickening between them. He reached out, his fingers brushing her arm where blood had dried. The touch was gentle, uncharacteristically so, and her wolf shivered. "You're hurt," he murmured, the edge gone from his tone. "Come back to the pack house, I'll have the healer look at it." She pulled back sharply, meeting his gaze with fire. "No, I will tend to myself. You lost the right to care when you rejected me." His eyes darkened, not with anger this time, but with something unreadable. For a heartbeat, the bond surged, tugging at them both like invisible chains. Leona's chest rose and fell rapidly, her body warring with her pride. At last, Darius exhaled slowly, forcing distance back into his voice. "Very well, but know this, Leona. The rogues didn't come by chance, they were hunting, and you were their target." The words struck her like thunder. Her grip on the sword tightened. "Why me?" "That," Darius said, turning his gaze toward the darkened tree line, "is the question we must answer before the next attack. Because they will come again." The forest swallowed his words, leaving only the pounding of Leona's heart. Rejected or not, she was no longer just a pawn in the pack's story. The rogues wanted her, and she intended to find out why. Chapter 7. Shadows stir. The morning sun cut through the trees like golden spears, but for Leona, the forest no longer carried peace. Darius's words from the night before echoed in her mind. They were hunting. And you were their target. She had not slept, pacing the cabin with her father's sword, never far from reach. Every creak of the wood, every whisper of wind against the shutters made her wolf bristle. Why would rogues seek her out specifically? She was no alpha, no leader. Just a rejected mate. Or so she thought. When she finally stepped into the village center, conversation halted. Wolves paused mid-task, their eyes flicking toward her. The story of the rogue attack had spread quickly, and whispers followed her every step. She held her head high, though her heart raced. Strength was her only armor. Mara intercepted her near the well, worry etched into her features. "Leona, please, stay close to others. The rogues could strike again. You shouldn't walk alone." "I refuse to live as prey," Leona said, filling a jug with water. The reflection in the rippling surface stared back at her, eyes fierce, shoulders squared. "If they want me, they'll have to bleed for it." Before Mara could reply, the crowd shifted. Darius approached, flanked by two of his top warriors. His presence stilled the air, commanding attention as naturally as the pull of the moon. His gaze swept over her, sharp yet unreadable, before addressing the pack. "The rogues grow bold," he announced. "We've confirmed tracks along our eastern border. They move with purpose, not chaos. This is no scattered pack of scavengers. This is organized." Murmurs broke out, fear threading through the crowd. Leona noticed how the emissaries from Silverfang lingered at the edges, their cold eyes fixed on her rather than Darius. A chill prickled her skin. Why did they watch her so intently? As the meeting dispersed, Darius caught her arm, pulling her aside. His grip was firm, his voice low. "You need protection. Until we understand why they're after you, you won't leave guarded territory." Leona yanked her arm free, fury sparking in her chest. "I will not be caged like some fragile pup." His jaw tightened, the bond between them thrumming hot and heavy in the air. "Stubborn woman, do you not see?" "You're in danger, Leona." She leaned closer, her voice sharp but steady. "I've been in danger since the moment you rejected me, but I won't let fear dictate my life. Not yours, not the rogues, not anyone's." For a long moment their eyes locked, golden fire meeting defiant amber. The crowd moved around them, but it felt as though the world had narrowed to just the two of them. Tension crackled, raw and undeniable. Then, from the shadows of the tree line, a low growl rolled across the village square. Wolves froze, hackles rising. Rogues. Again. But this time, the attack was not a simple ambush. As dark figures burst from the forest, their snarls carrying through the air, one word echoed through the packs, mind-link, sent from the invaders themselves. Leona. The world tilted. The rogues were not merely hunting her, they were calling for her. Chapter 8. The rogues' call chaos erupted in the village square. Mothers pulled their children back, warriors shifted to their wolf forms, and the air filled with snarls and the crunch of claws on earth. The rogues had never been so bold before, storming directly into the heart of the pack's lands. And yet, their target was not the Alpha, not the Council, not the territory itself. It was her, Leona. Her name tore from their throats like a chant, guttural and unnatural, carried through the pack's mind link with terrifying clarity. Every wolf present heard it. Every wolf turned to her. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The rogues' yellow eyes fixed on her like predators locked on prey, yet their hunger held something deeper than bloodlust. It was for a purpose. They wanted her alive. Darius lunged forward, his wolf form massive and black as night. His snarl split the air, a sound that made even seasoned warriors flinch. He collided with the first rogue in a blur of muscle and fang, blood spraying across the dirt. Around him, his warriors followed suit, engaging the intruders in a violent dance of claws and teeth. Leona's wolf strained within her, demanding release. Her skin prickled, her bones aching to shift. She drew her father's sword instead, the weight of it grounding her. The blade flashed in the sunlight as a rogue broke past the defensive line, lunging for her. She met him head-on, steel biting into flesh, her movements sharper, swifter than she knew she possessed. The rogue fell, but two more replaced him. "Leona!" Mara's scream pierced the noise. Her friend tried to reach her but was cut off by another snarling wolf. Leona's heart stuttered, torn between fear and fury. She fought harder. Then it happened. One rogue larger than the rest forced through the melee. His eyes glowed with something unnatural, burning with crimson streaks. He did not attack. Instead, he halted before her, blood dripping from his maw, and spoke, not through lips but through the mind link. "Daughter of the fallen, the blood we seek, you are the key." The world seemed to tilt around her. Gasps filled the pack bond as others heard the words. Her father, they knew her father. They were not hunting at random. They were here for her blood, her lineage. Before she could demand answers, Darius's massive wolf form slammed into the rogue, snapping its neck in one brutal motion. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. The remaining rogues, seeing their leader fall, fled back into the trees, leaving only carnage and confusion behind. Leona stood frozen, her sword dripping with blood, her chest heaving. The pack stared at her, whispers rising like smoke. "Daughter of the fallen, she's the key." "What does it mean?" Darius shifted back, his body towering and blood-stained, his golden eyes blazing as they fixed on her. "You will tell me everything you know about your father," he ordered, his voice like thunder rolling through the clearing. Leona's grip tightened on the sword. Her father's memory was a wound she rarely touched, one the pack used as a blade against her. But now it seemed the truth of who he was and what legacy he left behind had become the center of everything. For the first time, the rejection no longer mattered. Pride, shame, even heartbreak. All of it paled against the revelation that her bloodline might hold the key to the pack's survival. Or its destruction. Chapter 9. Bloodlines of Secrets. The aftermath of the battle left the village in tatters. Blood stained the dirt square, wolves limped back from the fray, and the whispers had grown into a storm. Every eye, whether filled with fear or curiosity, kept flicking toward Leona. The words of the rogue leader clung to the air like smoke. "Daughter of the fallen, you are the key." Leona felt as though the ground had been ripped from beneath her feet. She had lived her entire life under the shadow of her father's disgrace, the fallen warrior no one spoke of without bitterness or scorn. Now, it seemed his ghost was not finished haunting her. Darius stood at the center of the chaos, radiating authority even with blood dripping from his skin. His golden eyes burned as they locked onto Leona. Inside, now. His voice brooked no argument. He didn't wait to see if she obeyed, simply turned and strode toward the council chambers. Warriors parted for him like waves before a storm. Mara touched Leona's arm gently. "Go with him. You need to know what this means. For you. For all of us." Leona's chest tightened, but she nodded. She walked, sword still in her hand, into the heart of the chamber where the fire pit burned low, casting flickering light across the elders' stern faces. The emissaries from Silverfang were there too, their cold stares heavy with interest. Darius took his seat at the head of the table but did not relax. His voice was sharp. "Speak, Leona. What do you know of your father's past?" Her throat felt dry. "I know only what the pack has always told me, that he betrayed you, that he fell in disgrace, that his death was shameful." Her words were bitter, edged with years of resentment. "But I never believed it. He was my father. He taught me strength, honor, and pride. Whatever the truth was, I was never allowed to hear it." One of the elders, an old man with eyes clouded by age, shifted uncomfortably. Her father was no ordinary warrior. He carried secrets, some too dangerous for even the Alpha to know. The Silverfang emissary leaned forward, her voice silken. Secrets tied to the old blood, to the moon's chosen lines. Her gaze pierced Leona like a blade. It seems the rogues are not after your alpha, but after you, the daughter of a man who once held knowledge long buried. Leona's heart pounded. She felt the weight of every stare, every expectation suddenly pressed onto her shoulders. What knowledge? What bloodline? The elder hesitated, then whispered a single word, the Firstborn. The chamber fell into silence. Even Darius stiffened, his face betraying a rare flicker of unease. Leona's wolf stirred violently inside her, restless and alert. She didn't yet understand what the word meant, but instinct told her this was no ordinary secret. It was a truth powerful enough to change the fate of the pack, and perhaps explain why the rogues would kill or die to claim her. And for the first time, Leona realized she might not just be the rejected mate of an alpha. She might be the heir to a legacy far greater and far deadlier than anyone had dared to tell her. Chapter 10. The Rising Storm. The word Firstborn echoed in Leona's mind like a curse. She wanted to demand more, to tear the truth from the elder's lips, but the air in the council chamber had grown thick with tension. The fire pit crackled softly, its light casting uneasy shadows across the walls. Darius leaned forward, his golden eyes locked on the elder who had spoken. "Explain, now." His voice was edged with fury, but beneath it a note of something rarer lingered, fear. The elder swallowed. The Firstborn were the moon's original children, gifted with strength beyond measure and destinies bound to both light and darkness. Your father. He carried a fragment of that blood, a power the rogues would kill to control, and now Leona carries it too. Leona's skin prickled. She shook her head, disbelief clawing at her. "That's impossible. I'm just a warrior's daughter?" The Silverfang emissary interrupted smoothly. "No, you are more. And that is why your alpha rejected you." Her eyes slid toward Darius, gleaming with sharp amusement. "Because even he fears what you could become." Leona felt as though she'd been struck. Her chest burned, anger and humiliation twisting together. She turned to Darius, her voice a low growl. "Is that true? Did you reject me because of this?" For a moment, silence. Darius's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair hard enough to splinter wood. He didn't answer. The emissary smirked. "His silence tells you enough." Leona's wolf surged within her, wild and restless. She slammed her hand against the table, the sound echoing like thunder. "If this blood is mine, then it is mine to master. I will not be a weapon for rogues, nor a shame for my pack. I will find the truth of my father's legacy, with or without this council's blessing." Gasps rippled across the chamber. Darius rose to his feet, towering, his aura filling the space with raw dominance. "Leona!" But before he could finish, a horn sounded outside, deep, urgent, carrying the call of danger. Warriors burst into the chamber. "Alpha! The rogues have returned, and they're not alone." The ground seemed to tremble beneath their feet. The emissary's smirk faded into something sharper, her eyes glittering with recognition. "So soon," she whispered. "They must have sensed the truth has been spoken." Leona gripped her sword, her heart steadying with grim resolve. She looked at Darius, meeting his eyes squarely. "Whatever storm is coming, I'll face it. Not as your mate, not as your reject, but as the daughter of the Firstborn." Darius's gaze burned, unreadable, but there was no time to answer. The storm had arrived at their gates. Chapter 11. Battle lines drawn. The village square erupted in chaos as the horn's echo faded. Warriors scrambled into formation, mothers pulled their children into the safety of shelters, and the scent of blood still clinging from the earlier fight mixed with the sharp tang of fear. The rogues had returned, and this time the air carried a promise of war. Leona stood at the threshold of the council chambers, sword gleaming in the torchlight. She could feel the storm of emotions swirling within her wolf: anger, fear, but also a strange, dangerous exhilaration. For the first time, her place in the coming battle was unquestionable. This fight was hers as much as it was the Alpha's. Darius emerged beside her, a towering presence, his aura of command sweeping over the pack like fire. "Form the defensive line," he barked, his voice carrying above the din. "No one enters the square without my command. Protect the children first, then the elders, warriors. Shift and be ready." Dozens of wolves howled in unison, their bodies snapping and breaking into powerful forms, fur bristling and eyes glowing beneath the moonlight. The sound shook Leona's bones, but instead of shrinking from it, she embraced the wild energy coursing through the pack. Mara pressed a dagger into her palm. "For luck," she said breathlessly, "and for blood." Leona smirked faintly. "I'll make sure it sees both." The rogues emerged from the tree line, darker than shadows, their red eyes gleaming with malice. This time they came in greater numbers, not just a band of stragglers, but an army. At their center loomed the scarred rogue Alpha, his massive wolf form nearly as large as Darius's. His voice thundered across the battlefield. "Give us the girl, and no more of your blood needs to be spilled." Every head turned to Leona. She felt the weight of the pack's fear pressing on her, but she lifted her chin high, her pride unshaken. "If you want me," she shouted, her voice ringing clear into the night, "you'll have to tear me from this ground, and I swear I won't go quietly." Gasps rippled through the pack, followed by murmurs of approval. For a moment, pride shimmered in their eyes, pride in her. Darius growled low, his golden eyes blazing as he stepped closer to her side. "You speak too boldly for someone who doesn't yet know the cost." His voice was harsh, but his nearness betrayed a strange, unspoken solidarity. "Stay behind me when the fighting begins." Leona's lips curved into a sharp smile. "Not a chance." The scarred rogue Alpha roared, raising his clawed hand. His army surged forward like a wave of death. Leona raised her sword. Her wolf howled inside her chest. The pack braced for impact. And as steel clashed with fang, she knew one truth: the battle for her bloodline had begun. Chapter 12. Moonlit Fury. The battlefield was chaotic. Wolves clashed with rogues under the cold light of the full moon, snarls and screams echoing into the night. Steel flashed, claws tore through flesh, and the ground trembled beneath the fury of the fight. Blood darkened the earth, soaking into the roots of the village that had already suffered too many scars. Leona fought with every ounce of strength her father had ever taught her. Her blade cut through the rogues' ranks, each strike driven not only by survival, but by defiance. Her wolf surged inside her, lending her a speed and ferocity that startled even the seasoned warriors at her side. She was no longer the rejected mate hiding in the shadows. She was a warrior, a storm in human form. From across the square, the scarred rogue Alpha watched her, his massive form plowed through defenders, his red eyes fixed on her as though nothing else existed. "Daughter of the Firstborn!" he roared, his voice booming over the chaos. "The blood in your veins belongs to us." Leona gritted her teeth, slashing down another foe. "Come and claim it then!" she shouted back, fury blazing in her chest. Darius shifted into his wolf, a towering beast of golden fur and muscle. His roar shook the night, a sound of dominance that sent fear rippling through the rogues. He tore through their lines to reach Leona, blood spattering his pelt, his eyes glowing with both rage and something unspoken whenever they landed on her. Their backs met in the thick of the battle, Alpha and rejected mate fighting as one. Every move seemed to flow in tandem. her blade cutting down those who slipped past his claws, his massive frame shielding her from fatal blows. For a fleeting heartbeat, they were not divided by rejection or pride, but united by survival. The rogue Alpha surged forward at last, his massive form slamming into Darius with bone-shaking force. The clash of the two titans sent shockwaves through the square. Wolves and rogues alike halted in their tracks to watch as Alpha fought Alpha beneath the burning moon. Leona's heart pounded as she tried to cut her way closer, but Mara grabbed her arm. "No, Leona, that fight is his! It's mine too!" she snarled, ripping free. Her wolf demanded she stand beside Darius, not behind him. The rogue Alpha pinned Darius, claws sinking into golden fur. "Your pack is weak," he growled. "Give her to me, and I'll end this." Leona's rage snapped. With a cry that split the night, she leapt onto the rogue's back, plunging her blade deep into his shoulder. The beast howled, thrashing wildly, giving Darius the opening to break free and slam him to the ground. For one breathless moment, silence fell. All eyes turned to Leona, her chest heaving, her sword dripping with blood. The rogue's leader had been wounded, not by an alpha, but by the pack's rejected daughter. And in that instant, she ceased to be a burden in their eyes. She was a weapon, a force, perhaps even a savior. But as the rogue Alpha staggered back to his feet, bleeding but grinning, he whispered words only Leona could hear. "You bleed like him. You will fall like him too." Her father's shadow loomed larger than ever, and Leona realized this battle was only the beginning. Chapter 13. Ashes of Truth. The battle raged until dawn painted the horizon red. By then, the rogues had retreated, dragging their wounded Alpha into the shadows of the forest. Their howls echoed in the distance, a promise that this was not defeat, but a delay. The pack stood bloodied and weary, the square littered with the dead and dying. Leona's hands trembled as she wiped her blade clean, her body aching with exhaustion and bruises. Around her, warriors looked at her with new eyes. No longer was she only the girl who had been rejected by the Alpha. She was the one who had stood her ground, who had struck the enemy leader and lived. Whispers began to ripple through the survivors. "She carries the blood. She carries the fire." Darius, still in his wolf form, limped toward her. His golden pelt was matted with blood, his flank torn from the rogue Alpha's claws. Yet when his eyes met hers, something unspoken passed between them, a bond neither rejection nor pride could break. Mara rushed forward with healers, pressing herbs to his wounds. Leona reached out instinctively, her fingers brushing over the thick fur of his neck. The heat of him calmed her racing heart, though she quickly drew her hand back, unsure if she had crossed a line. The elders summoned her to the fire once more. Their faces were drawn and grave. "Your father's legacy cannot remain hidden," the eldest said. "The rogues will not stop, and neither will the emissaries from Silverfang, who hunger for the same power." Leona's jaw tightened. "Then stop keeping me in the dark. Tell me everything. Who was my father really? What does Firstborn mean?" The elder closed his eyes. "Your father was not only one of us. He was a guardian of a secret older than this pack, older than any Alpha alive. The Firstborn were touched by the moon goddess herself, meant to lead or to destroy. Your father carried that blood, and it cost him his life. He chose to hide his power, but the rogues discovered enough to hunt him down. Now they know it flows in you." Leona's throat tightened as fragments of memory returned. Her father training her by moonlight, whispering words she had once thought were only stories. Strength is not in dominance, but in choice. Protect what others would destroy, even if it costs you everything. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall before the council. "If this bloodline is mine, then I won't run from it. I'll use it to defend this pack. But don't mistake me for a pawn. I will not be caged by fear or duty." The Silver Fang emissary stepped forward, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Bold words. "But can you truly master power you barely understand? If not, the blood will consume you, as it consumed him." The room chilled. Darius, now in human form, staggered to his feet despite his injuries. His voice was raw. "She won't fall, not while I live." His golden eyes, burning with defiance, locked on Leona's. In that moment, she realized that rejection or not, pride or not, their fates were now bound together. By blood, by war, and by a legacy older than either of them had imagined. Chapter 14. Shadows Unbound. The night after the battle was restless. The pack mourned its fallen with howls that carried into the forest, but the silence that followed was heavier still. Leona stood apart from the others, her sword laid across her knees as she sat near the dying embers of a fire. The words of the emissary and the elders gnawed at her. Firstborn, power that consumes. Her father's fall. She clenched her fists. If her father's blood had doomed him, she would not allow it to doom her too. A shift of air warned her before Darius approached. He moved slower than usual, his wounds not yet healed, but his presence was still magnetic, still commanding. He stopped beside her fire, golden eyes catching the glow. For a long moment neither spoke. "You fight like him," Darius said finally, his voice low. "Your father. I see him in you." Leona stiffened. "You speak of him now, but you never defended him when they called him a traitor." His jaw tightened. "I believed what I was told, that he had betrayed us, that he turned his back on the pack. But tonight, seeing you, I wonder if there was more." Her gaze cut to his, sharp and unyielding. "There was always more. You just didn't want to see it." Silence pressed between them, heavy and fraught with unspoken truths. Then, softer, he added, "I rejected you not because of weakness, but because of fear. Fear of this bloodline, fear of what I could not control." The confession struck her like a blade. For a heartbeat she wanted to lash out, to remind him of the pain he had caused her. But instead, she drew a slow breath and whispered, "Then perhaps the moon put us together not to bind us in love, but to test us in war." Before he could reply, a piercing cry split the night. Wolves stirred, hackles rising. A scout stumbled into the square, bloodied and breathless. "They're here," he gasped. "The rogues, and something darker. They've awakened what your father sealed." The pack erupted in chaos. Elders shouted orders, warriors scrambled for weapons, and the Silverfang emissary's face paled for the first time since she arrived. "It cannot be," she whispered. The seal of shadows was broken. Leona's heart lurched. She remembered the stories her father had whispered, tales of creatures older than rogues, older than packs, shadows born of the moon's wrath, bound away by sacrifice and blood. If they were free, this war was no longer about territory. It was about survival itself. Darius turned to her, his expression grim but resolute. "If this is your father's legacy, then you are the only one who can stand against it." Leona rose, fire sparking in her chest despite the dread. "Then let the shadows come. I will face what he faced. I will finish what he could not." And as the first tremors shook the earth, as howls unlike any she had ever heard pierced the night, Leona knew the true war had only just begun. Chapter 15. The Seal of Shadows. The night pressed heavy on the pack, every wolf sensing that the world they knew was about to change forever. The forest groaned like an old beast, trees swaying under a wind that carried no scent of earth or rain, only the metallic tang of blood and ancient power. Above them, The moon no longer shone silver. It pulsed crimson, casting the land in a haunting glow that made even seasoned warriors hesitate. Leona stood at the center of the square, her blade unsheathed, the light of the moon catching its steel. Fear hung thick in the air, but her spine remained unbending. Scouts stumbled back into the gathering, their eyes wide with terror. "They've awakened the Shadowborn," one rasped, his voice breaking. The words dropped like a stone into still water, rippling shock through the crowd. Mothers pulled their children closer, warriors exchanged tense looks. Even the elders, wolves who had seen wars and famines and fire, paled. The Silver Fang emissary's voice was low, edged with dread. "The Shadowborn are not flesh and blood. They are wrath bound into form, forged from the moon's fury itself. Long ago your father sealed them with his blood, but if that seal has shattered..." Leona's heart hammered as memories surged. Her father's haunted warnings, his refusal to speak of his final mission, the way his eyes burned with sorrow the night before he vanished. She had believed him flawed, dishonored. But the truth was far sharper. "He wasn't a traitor," she whispered, her voice trembling with revelation. "He was our shield, the last wall between us and them." Darius's eyes glowed golden in the crimson dark, his jaw set like stone. "And that shield is gone, which means we stand on the edge of a war not meant for mortals." The ground trembled, a violent quake that rattled stones underfoot. Then it came, a howl so deep it seemed to rise from the marrow of the earth, hollow and endless, shattering courage. This was no wolf's cry. It was hunger made sound. The Shadowborn were waking. Leona's wolf clawed inside her chest, begging for release, for blood, for battle. She raised her chin, fire blazing in her eyes, and turned to her people. Her voice carried with a strength not her own, like her father's spirit spoke through her. "We will not bow, we will not break. My father gave his life to bind them, and I will give mine to finish what he began. If the Shadowborn wants me, then they will learn what it means to challenge the blood of the Firstborn." A roar of howls rose from the pack, uniting fear into fury. The sound tore through the night, meeting the monstrous cries rolling out of the forest. Darius stepped to her side, his heat, his power anchoring her. "Then it is decided. No more lies, no more distance. Whatever comes, Leona, we face it together." It wasn't a command, it wasn't even a plea, it was a vow, sealed in the bond that had always burned between them, denied too long, now undeniable. From the tree line, shadows slithered like smoke-given teeth, twisting into monstrous forms. Glowing eyes pierced the dark, bodies jagged and shifting, as if half-born from nightmares. The crimson moon flared brighter, bathing the battlefield in bloodlight. The seal of shadows had broken, and with it the war for the soul of the pack had begun. Chapter 16. Blood on the Moon. The night had turned into a battlefield before the first strike was even made. The crimson moon poured its unholy glow across the land, painting every shadow with menace. From the forest depths, the Shadowborn surged, not like wolves but like nightmares woven into flesh. Their bodies were twisted mockeries, claws longer than daggers, eyes burning with an otherworldly hunger. The pack braced as one, fur bristling, fangs bared. The air rang with growls and the scent of fear sharpened by defiance. Leona shifted, bones cracking, fur tearing through her skin as her wolf form emerged, sleek, powerful, marked by faint streaks of silver light across her pelt, a sign of her firstborn blood. Gasps echoed through the ranks at the sight, a reminder that she was no ordinary wolf. Darius shifted beside her, his massive black wolf towering like a shadow forged of muscle and rage. His golden eyes cut through the darkness, locking on hers for a fleeting heartbeat. The bond between them pulsed, unspoken but undeniable, together. Then the first clash erupted. The Shadowborn lunged, shrieking cries splitting the night. Steel met claw, fang met flesh. Warriors leapt into the fray, their howls joining Leona's as she tore through the front line. Blood spattered the earth, some dark and foul, some heartbreakingly familiar. Every strike of Leona's felt guided, her father's memory burning in her veins. She fought like a flame incarnate, her wolf agile yet merciless, weaving through the chaos. She could feel the Shadowborn's malice pressing against her mind, whispering promises of power, trying to break her spirit. But her pride and her bond to her pack anchored her. At the battle's edge, the Silverfang emissary unleashed ancient incantations, her voice weaving light into shields that blazed against the crawling dark. But even her magic strained, cracks forming as the Shadowborn pressed harder. Darius tore apart one creature, his jaws breaking bone only to whirl and protect a fallen warrior. His wolf radiated dominance, holding the line where others faltered. Yet his focus was always tethered to Leona, their bond a lifeline in the chaos. Suddenly, the ground split open, shadows gushing forth like liquid night. From within, a larger form rose, taller than any wolf, crowned in horns, its body armored with living darkness. The Shadowborn Alpha had awakened. Leona froze, her chest heaving as her wolf's instincts screamed. This was no ordinary foe. This was the darkness her father had bled to bind. "Leona!" Darius's voice thundered in her mind through the bond, sharp with urgency. "It's after you. It knows who you are." The Shadowborn Alpha's burning eyes locked on her, a cruel hunger in their depths. The battlefield seemed to fall away until it was only them. Predator and prey, legacy and doom. Leona's heart pounded, but she bared her fangs, a growl ripping through her chest. Then it will learn why the Firstborn blood does not kneel. The Shadowborn Alpha roared, and the true battle began. Chapter 17, Legacy of Fire. The Shadowborn Alpha towered over the battlefield, its body a writhing storm of shadows and jagged horns, its howl shaking the very marrow of the earth. The crimson moon flared brighter, as though the heavens themselves watched in dread. Wolves faltered, their courage straining against the weight of such terror. But Leona did not break. Her silver-marked wolf stepped forward, eyes burning with defiance. The bond between her and Darius surged like a living flame, anchoring her to the moment. His massive black wolf circled her protectively, growling at the monstrosity ahead. Through the bond, his voice came steady, fierce. "You are not alone, Leona. Together, we are stronger than fate." The Shadowborn Alpha lunged. The impact shook the earth as its claws carved into the soil where she had stood only a heartbeat earlier. Leona darted aside, faster than even she thought possible, her movements fueled by something beyond mortal strength. Every strike she landed burned with silver light, her claws searing the beast's flesh. Its roar split the night, shadows spilling like black fire across the battlefield. But for every wound inflicted, the creature seemed to mend, its body twisting, reforming. Warriors who dared approach were flung aside like broken dolls. Fear rippled through the pack. They had never faced an enemy that would not die. Leona's heart hammered, but deep within, something stirred. A warmth she had felt only faintly before now blazed in her veins, burning brighter than the moon above. Her father's blood, the firstborn legacy, rising at last. Visions flickered before her eyes, her father raising his blade beneath a moon just as crimson, shadows screaming as he bound them with his own life's force. "Your fire is not mine alone," his voice whispered in her mind, ancient and steady. "It was always yours to claim." The warmth exploded into power. Silver fire licked across her pelt, her wolf glowing like a star amidst the carnage. The Shadowborn Alpha recoiled for the first time, faltering. The pack gasped, hope rekindled. Warriors who had trembled now howled, their voices fierce with renewed strength. The Silver Fang emissary's eyes widened, awe softening her usual steel. She has awakened the legacy. Darius pressed against her side, his golden gaze locked on her. Leona, this power, it answers to you. Don't fight it, wield it. The Shadowborn Alpha roared again and lunged, but this time Leona did not dodge. She met its charge head-on, silver fire blazing from her claws as she struck. Light clashed with shadow, a storm of fire and darkness tearing through the battlefield. The impact hurled warriors backward, splitting the ground and scorching the trees. When the dust cleared, Leona stood in the center, her body trembling but unbroken, silver fire still burning across her form. The Shadowborn Alpha staggered, half its chest seared open, shadows writhing to knit the wound, but slower now, weaker. Leona lifted her head, her howl echoing like thunder. "This ends with me!" The pack answered her call, their united voices rising into the blood-soaked sky. For the first time, the Shadowborn faltered before the will of the living. The war was far from over, but hope had taken root, and with it the legacy of fire was reborn. Chapter 18, Shattered Chains. The battlefield pulsed with silver fire and seething shadows. Wolves clashed with abominations while the crimson moon loomed like a silent witness. Leona's body trembled under the weight of her newfound power, but her spirit refused to waver. Every breath she drew stoked the flame of her father's legacy, burning brighter against the tide of darkness. The Shadowborn Alpha staggered, scorched by her fire, but its form twisted with rage, healing itself with agonizing slowness. The ground beneath it cracked as if rejecting its presence, shadows pooling like venomous rivers, its burning eyes fixed on Leona alone, hunger and hatred entwined. Darius's wolf stood beside her, his black fur bristling, his golden eyes alight with unshakable resolve. "Leona," his voice thundered through their bond, steady as steel. "You've broken its armor. We must shatter its chains before it can bind this world again." Her heart lurched. She remembered the stories whispered in fragments, the chains her father had forged, links of light and blood that had once held the Shadowborn bound. If those chains had broken, then perhaps they could be remade. She lunged, striking the Shadowborn Alpha with a surge of silver flame so fierce it cracked the sky. The beast howled, its form unraveling, shadows screaming as light ripped through them. The battlefield shook as the very chains of darkness splintered and fell away. The Shadowborn Alpha staggered, its massive body collapsing to its knees. For the first time, it looked weakened, vulnerable. The pack howled in unison, their cries echoing through the blood-red night. The tide had shifted, but Leona knew the war was not yet won. Breaking the chains had unleashed something even greater. She could feel it, a deeper shadow stirring beneath, ancient and waiting. The true enemy had yet to rise. Chapter 19. The darkest dawn. The battlefield had fallen into a terrible silence, broken only by the ragged breaths of survivors and the distant crackle of burning trees. The Shadowborn Alpha lay crippled, its chest seared open, shadows writhing as if desperate to stitch themselves back together. Yet even weakened, its presence poisoned the air, a reminder that the fight was not over. Leona's silver fire flickered around her, dimmer now, her strength stretched to its limits. Every step felt heavier, yet her spirit burned unyielding. She had broken the chains, defied the legacy of silence, and for a moment, hope had blazed brighter than fear. But then the ground itself trembled. From the ruins of the shattered seal, a darkness deeper than shadow began to rise, vast, ancient, unending. It coiled upward like a storm, blotting out the crimson moon. The air grew heavy, pressing down on every living soul until even the strongest warriors bowed beneath its weight. The Silverfang emissary's face paled, her voice breaking. This is the true one. The Shadowborn Alpha was only its vessel. The Ancient has awakened. Dread rippled through the pack. Wolves whimpered, some collapsing under the crushing aura. The elders wept openly, for they had prayed this day would never come. Leona's heart thundered. The fire within her screamed against the dark, but she knew this was the enemy her father had truly faced, the one his blood alone could not destroy, the one bound by sacrifice, now lost because of her defiance. Darius pressed against her side, his golden eyes steady despite the storm. "Leona, look at me!" His voice cut through the terror, strong and unshakable. "You are not your father, you are more. We fight this together or not at all." His certainty anchored her, even as the darkness towered higher, its form shifting, countless eyes glowing within the void, countless claws scraping the air, a body without end. Its voice rumbled like the breaking of mountains, seeping into every mind. "Daughter of the Firstborn, you cannot escape your blood. Surrender, and I will make you eternal." The temptation slithered into her veins, cold and suffocating. For a heartbeat her fire faltered. She saw visions, herself crowned in shadow, feared and worshipped, her name eternal. No pain, no loss, no rejection. But then she saw her pack. The warriors are bleeding for her, the children watching from behind their mother's legs, the bond tethering her to Darius, unyielding and real. Her pride surged, sharper than steel, blazing through the shadows' whispers. Her voice rang across the battlefield, fierce and defiant. "I am my father's blood, but I am not his shadow. I am flame, I am pride, I am pack. You will not have me." The Ancient roared, its scream splitting the night, and the crimson moon shattered into 1,000 fragments of light. The battlefield was swallowed by storm and fire. The final war had come. Chapter 20. Eternal Flame. The battlefield was no longer earth and stone. It was a storm of shadow and fire, the world itself shuddering beneath the weight of the Ancient's power. Its form towered across the sky, endless and shifting, a monstrous silhouette crowned with countless eyes burning like dying stars. Its voice was a constant whisper in every wolf's mind, offering surrender, promising oblivion. But Leona stood in the center of it all, her silver fire blazing against the dark. She was battered, her body streaked with blood and ash, yet her spirit burned brighter than ever. Around her the pack gathered, bruised, bloodied, but unbroken. Their howls rose above the chaos, a chorus of defiance that cut through the Ancient's whispers. Darius's massive black wolf stood beside her, his golden eyes locked on hers. Through their bond, his voice wrapped around her like steel and fire. "Leona, this ends tonight. We will finish this together." She nodded, her chest heaving. Together. The Ancient struck. Claws of shadow ripped across the battlefield, tearing through warriors, splintering trees, gouging craters into the earth. Leona leapt, silver fire trailing her like a comet, striking the beast's arm. The fire seared it, but the wound healed instantly, shadows knitting together. Again it struck, and again she answered, each clash shaking the world apart. But the Ancient was endless. It was hunger given form. Every strike Leona landed drained her, the silver fire dimming, the weight of legacy pressing down. Despair crept at the edges of her mind, whispering that she was only one wolf, that she could not do what her father had failed to finish. And then she felt it, the pack, every warrior, every howl, every heart beating in rhythm with hers. The bond of pack, not forged by fear but by pride, by loyalty, by love. She realized her father had fought alone, but she did not stand alone. Her silver fire flared brighter than ever before. Darius pressed against her, lending his strength, his golden gaze unwavering. "Leona, take it, all of it, our strength, our bond, our pride. End this." Power surged through her, not only her father's legacy but the will of her entire pack flowing into her veins. Her wolf glowed like a star, her fire turning white-hot, blinding against the abyss. The ancient roared, shadows flailing, trying to smother her flame. "You cannot destroy me, child. I am eternal." Leona bared her fangs, her voice a battle cry that split the heavens. "So am I. I am the eternal flame." With a howl that shook the earth, she hurled herself into the ancient's heart, her fire erupting into a blazing storm. Light ripped through shadow, tearing it apart piece by piece, every eye shattering, every claw dissolving into ash. The battlefield was drowned in fire, not of destruction but of cleansing, burning away centuries of darkness. The ancient screamed one final time before imploding into nothingness, the crimson glow of the moon fading into silver once more. The night fell silent. When the smoke cleared, Leona stood in the center, her wolf form glowing faintly, her fire reduced to embers. Darius limped to her side, shifting back into his human form, his hand finding hers. Around them, the pack emerged, wounded but alive, their howls rising in triumph. The Silverfang emissary knelt, her eyes wide with awe. "You have done what none before you could. You are not just your father's daughter. You are the flame that will lead us into a new dawn." Leona's chest heaved, tears burning her eyes. For the first time she felt no weight of rejection, no shadow of doubt, only pride in herself, in her pack, in the bond she had chosen. She turned to Darius, his eyes soft but fierce, filled with the promise of a future she had never dared to dream. He squeezed her hand, his voice low but certain. "The war is over, Leona, but our story has only just begun." As dawn broke, the silver moon gave way to the sun, its light washing the battlefield in gold. The pack howled as one, not in mourning but in victory, their voices rising to the heavens. And in the center of it all, Leona stood tall, no longer the rejected, no longer the shadow of her father, but the eternal flame of her people. And though the ancient was gone, a whisper lingered in the wind, a reminder that shadows never truly vanish. They only wait. The story did not have an ending. It was the beginning of legends.